A young man vanishes without a trace. Concern turns to terror when the ransom calls begin. Police and the FBI battle a brutal drug cartel, uncovering a deadly crime ring that will do anything to get what they want.
Chicago street gang thought they had figured out how to kidnap people for ransom again and again and never get caught. But their one mistake was they underestimated the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. Agents teamed up with one of the victim's brave relatives to break the ruthless gang who destroyed lives for profit.
June 27th, 1996, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 90 miles north of Chicago on the western shore of Lake Michigan. "17-year-old high school senior Jaime Estrada and his cousin Roberto Alvarez pulled up outside a convenience store on the city's south side. Jaime went in for sodas, leaving Roberto in the custom Monte Carlo Jaime and his brothers owned.
Damn right, man. So what's going on tonight?
The store was a popular hangout where they often met friends. When Jaime came out, he spotted a girl he recognized. Jaime had been wanting to get to know the girl more and went to talk with her. Star catcher in local baseball leagues, Jaime was a popular kid. As Roberto was talking with a friend, he noticed the van pull away. He figured Jaime had left with the girl and would probably be right back. When Jaime had not returned after more than an hour, Roberto began to worry. Something was wrong. So Roberto decided to see if Jaime had gone home. He told Jaime's brother Paulo what had happened and found he had not come home.
What's going on? ¿Qué pasa? Jaime's been missing for now.
No one had heard from him since he left. It was not like Jaime to run off, leaving his cousin and his car. His parents tried to figure out what to do.
And then I've been waiting there for an hour. He still hasn't come back.
Let's go look for your brother right now.
They decided to split up and look for him in separate cars.
Go together, hang out in the car. No.
His mother stayed home in case Jaime called. The family searched the area for hours. Then, Jaime's oldest brother, Mark, received a page. The area code was 312 Chicago. After the phone number was 187, Jaime's personal code. Then, 911. It was an emergency. Mark stopped at the first phone booth he saw. He hoped Jaime was all right. voice he did not recognize. He said they had kidnapped Jaime and wanted $70,000 for his return.
Where is this?
The man said they were serious and warned that if the family did not follow instructions, they would cut off Jaime's ears, skin him, and send body parts in the mail. And if anyone went to the police, they would kill Jaime and the entire Estrada family. Mark was in disbelief. He called the number again. Maybe it was a prank. No one answered.
I didn't hear from anybody.
Jaime's father returned home. His wife said no one called. They were all getting frantic. When Mark came back, he told them about the call, the kidnapping, the threats. Mr. Estrada wanted to call the police immediately, but Mark told them the kidnappers would torture Jaime. They'd kill him.
We should do this.
We can't go to the
Gotta
police.
call
They
police.
said if we go to the police, that they're gonna cut off his ears, they're gonna skin him, and they're gonna mail it to us. He sounded...
The family did not know what to do.
Okay. Take him back to the kitchen.
They struggled with the decision all night, waiting for another phone call. But none came.
We're not waiting anymore.
By dawn, Mr. Estrada could wait no longer.
That phone.
He needed to help his son.
We need to do something. We got to call the police.
It had been more than 9 hours since Jaime was last seen. Mr. Estrada decided that he and Mark would go to the police. They had to take the chance. At the Milwaukee Police 2nd District Station,
Oh, yeah, the area code.
Mark and his father explained what happened to a detective on the Violent Crime Squad.
I called them and they said that if we went to the police, that they would cut off his ears.
Since this was an armed abduction that crossed state lines from Wisconsin to Illinois, the police called in the FBI.
Get the duty agent.
Thanks. Okay,
At the Milwaukee field office, FBI Special Agent Dan Kraft had just arrived at work.
I was sitting at my desk and I received a call. An 18-year-old kid had been kidnapped.
Kraft had to act quickly.
I met with the victim's father and his older brother and tried to take a detailed interview of them based on what had happened, when it had happened, potentially why. I realized that this was going to become a major case.
Back at the Estrada house,
Why, who is this?
Jaime's brother Paulo answered the phone.
Who is this?
I'm the guy who shot your brother.
It was the kidnappers. The man on the phone changed the ransom to $30,000 and also wanted the Monte Carlo.
What are you talking about?
He said they could prove their threats were serious. They had shot Jaime. Jaime confirmed he was shot.
Jaime!
He was hurt, bad. He pleaded with his brother to hurry.
Yeah?
Jaime!
Still, the man gave no details for a ransom drop. The man said they'd call again on Paulo's cell phone.
Hello? Hello? They shot Jaime.
They shot him?
They want $30,000.
Paulo told the others the terrifying news.
If you would, come on in, have a seat over here.
Paulo met his father and brother Mark at the FBI office.
What we're trying to do is take control of this situation.
Agents immediately tapped Paulo's cell phone since the kidnappers said they would be calling it next.
make sure you push this down. Automatically start the recording before you answer the phone.
I'm gonna be hooking up a tapping device.
They also
It's gonna go
attached a
to our
recording
core
device and tracing system to the Estrada's home
First
telephone.
thing you need to know is that this is the only phone that's gonna work with.
As the FBI continued to set up, they kept interviewing the family, not wasting a second in gathering information.
One of the first things that we did was set up what we call a rapid start. It's a computer database that helps us to manage a major case. We utilized rapid start to put in all the information that we had received at this point. Every little data point that we would come up with, even if it was partial.
The sophisticated database helps track leads and find links in complex, quickly moving cases.
I'll drop off one. This will be United States. Okay. There's the phone. Don't answer it yet.
That afternoon, Paulo's phone rang.
Real quick.
He knew to try to get as much information as possible.
Keep them on the phone as long as you can. Go ahead.
Hello.
The caller asked if Paulo had the ransom.
The money. No.
Paulo said he had about half
Well,
and
yeah.
needed more
No,
time.
the drop is gonna go perfect as scheduled. Jaime?
Jaime came on the phone and
Jaime.
told his brother to hurry. He was bleeding.
Tell your brother stop dragging it out. Tell your brother stop changing plans on us, eh?
Don't worry, we're coming to get you. We're doing everything we can. You're gonna be okay, all right?
You better have it, bro.
Hello? They hung up.
That should help.
While agents and detectives tried to trace the number, the Estradas moved to an adjacent room to wait for more calls. In a kidnapping case, the FBI tries to move deliberately, but not hastily.
And we have a tendency to try to slow things down and work at our pace and try to control. When a victim is shot, now you're dealing with a life and death matter, and every minute, every moment becomes critical.
3 hours later, Paulo got another call. Special Agent Kraft was concerned about how Paulo would handle it.
These type of situations are extremely stressful to begin with. When you factor in a person who is a relative who loves the victim, cares about the victim, they're going to act on emotions every time, and they can make bad judgments.
But despite the threats to his wounded brother, Paulo remained calm. The kidnappers insisted Paulo make the ransom drop of the car and cash at a fast food restaurant in Chicago. They said they'd call back with more details.
They hung up.
You never want to introduce a civilian into a high-risk situation.
I think we should go now.
But agents had no choice. Paulo would have to drop the car off himself. But since he would need a ride back home, an undercover agent could pose as a friend to provide at least some protection from Paulo.
Be escorting you out to the site.
The team left for Chicago. Milwaukee agents called in their counterparts at the Chicago FBI field office. Special Agent Kevin Cassidy would take the lead in that city.
Immediately after that notification from Milwaukee, when we knew the agents were coming, we started to organize our squad. And we knew that this was going to be a fast-moving case where we needed to be able to quickly mobilize our resources.
The drive from Milwaukee would take an hour and a half. That gave Chicago agents time to prepare. Violent Crime Squad Supervisory Special Agent Ron Hosko set up a command post at a local sports arena.
We gathered a number of folks up on the west side of the city by the United Center in a parking lot and briefed everybody on what we understood was the situation with the kidnapping demands.
Everybody's going to be on.
United Center is centrally located, which gave agents greater flexibility for quickly getting almost anywhere in the city.
The perimeters, let us know spots that we can set up our team, all right?
As Paulo and Special Agent Kraft traveled to the meeting place, Kraft used the time to prepare Paulo for how to handle the next call from the kidnappers.
Well, I would coach him and practice with him. I would act as a kidnapper and fire things at him, and I could see how he would react, and I could, make suggestions to him. Well, you don't want to do that, or you want to stay away from certain areas, or draw them out more by asking specific questions.
Polo and Kraft finally arrived at the staging area. Surveillance agents had already checked the fast food restaurant, the site of the ransom drop. The place was far from a controlled environment.
And our concerns were that there was a lot of traffic, foot traffic, pedestrian traffic, not only into the fast food shop, but in the area. And with the threats that we'd already received, we had concerns about our ability to prevent any kind of violent act with respect to the public who might be in that area at the wrong time.
But Paulo and the agents were ready. They had the money and the car.
Yeah. And one other thing, don't get out of your vehicle till the SUV is in position. All right?
Paulo got another call. Agents had him try to change the drop site to one that would be safer for everyone. But it was important he did not appear adamant.
The longer we, in effect, negotiate through the victim's brother, the more suspicious the subjects become that there's some law enforcement involvement. Ultimately, the discussions between the victim's brother and the kidnappers resulted in their agreeing to have this exchange at a department store parking lot that was a few miles away from the original location.
The kidnappers ordered Paulo to leave the money in the Monte Carlo with the doors unlocked and the keys in the ignition. Once they had the ransom and were safely away, they would allow Jaime to call Paulo to tell him where he was. Agents left right away to set up at the parking lot. It was an ideal location for protecting the public, but not Paulo. Agents would need to be hidden at a distance around the perimeter. It was Paulo who would have to face the kidnappers up close. But getting his little brother back was worth the risk. In 1996, Chicago agents and detectives were trying to rescue kidnapping victim Jaime Estrada. But the kidnappers would not bring their victim to the site of the ransom drop, according to FBI Special Agent Dan Kraft.
What we generally will try to do is have an exchange, an even exchange, the victim and the money for an even exchange. In this particular case, the kidnappers would not do that. It was not negotiable. It was not something I was very comfortable with, but sometimes you have to bend a little bit to get your ultimate goal.
The kidnappers ordered Jaime's brother Paulo to leave $30,000 in the Estrada brothers' custom Monte Carlo in a deserted parking lot. But the area was not entirely deserted. Surveillance units were hidden nearby, watching. Nearly 27 hours had passed since Jaime was abducted. Almost a full day since he was shot. Since Jaime needed medical attention, agents could not afford the time it might take to follow subjects or risk losing them. So they decided to arrest the kidnappers when the ransom drop was made. Unfortunately, the size of the location chosen by the kidnappers would make the arrest difficult to pull off. FBI Special Agent Ron Hosko.
This was a big, fairly expansive parking lot that was empty. Our vehicles were, from a starting point, on the outside of that lot, trying to maintain a discreet surveillance. So they had a fair amount of open ground that they had to cross to get in there.
Agents planned to counter this problem by attempting to keep the kidnappers off balance.
And they wanted the car left with the keys in the ignition and the doors unlocked. Well, we were going to screw that up a little bit by having the victim's brother lock the doors to the car, because it would end up stunning the kidnappers ever so slightly to where now they will have to regroup, reevaluate the situation, come up with a different plan.
We have 2 subjects in the target vehicle.
After a few minutes, a gray sedan pulled in. It looked like there were 3 men inside.
One of them got out, went over to the car, looked in, could see that the money was sitting on the front seat, so you could almost see him with joy and this desire. And then he goes to open up the door, and he can't get the door open, and the keys to the car are in the vehicle, because he didn't know what to do. So they go from being in control to now they have to react. We wanted to throw them off their game, and it swings the control back over to us.
All units, go, go, go!
The takedown signal was given. All units began to converge. But the suspects reacted instantly.
They immediately accelerated away from us before the other surveillance units had an opportunity to close the net on them.
Someone in the car pointed a gun at an agent, then threw something out of the window.
They were weaving around the responding vehicles, who are properly hesitant to ram that vehicle for any number of good reasons, not the least of which is that the victim could have been in the trunk.
The suspects got on an expressway and tore off toward downtown. Despite the late hour, there was still civilian traffic in danger.
We reached speeds of 120 miles an hour, and the kidnappers were in this stolen vehicle, and they were trying to cause an accident by going from one shoulder across 4 or 5 lanes of traffic all the way over to another shoulder, cutting cars off.
All right, Cherokee, come on up the wrong side of them. We're going to take them down.
Agents used their training to end the pursuit.
And they were able to execute what we call the pit maneuver, whereby they actually bumped the rear quarter panel. And the vehicle did not lose control completely. It just swerved slightly, but it was enough for the driver to slow down to a much lower speed, and our vehicles basically boxed them in at that point, and they came to a complete stop.
On the highway, agents and detectives surrounded the car. They knew the men inside were armed and dangerous.
We still had great concern about weapons, and while we could have a perimeter, you cannot prevent subjects from doing something you may not expect, like engaging in gunfire.
We removed all of the occupants of the car. We ended up finding 3 subjects in the car.
They all claimed to know nothing about Jaime Estrada and wouldn't even give agents their names. Each had ammunition, but no guns.
Keep them still.
Once they had the 3 men safely in custody, investigators checked to see if anything or anyone was in the trunk. It was empty. Jaime was not with them.
And it was certainly our suspicion that at least one co-conspirator was with Jaime Estrada, that was still holding him, and we needed to identify who that person was and where they were, and do that quickly.
Agents ran the license plate number and searched the rest of the car, and discovered a knife and a night vision rifle scope. They also found several pagers, a cell phone, and a piece of cardboard with Paulo's cell phone number written on it.
Cell phone number too, and go ahead and get the calling record on that. And get all
On the roadside near the start of the pursuit, agents located a loaded 9mm semi-automatic handgun. Likely the object seen thrown from the suspect's car. At the Chicago field office, agents tried to interview each of the suspects individually.
There's a gang after us, man. I didn't see no.
They refused to cooperate.
When was the last time you saw a gang with lights and sirens?
We stopped them, bitch.
During the interviews, the suspects' pagers went off multiple times. Someone was desperately trying to get in touch with them.
Take a look at that number. You know whose number this is.
The men swore they did not recognize the numbers.
Yeah, sure it is. What are you trying to hide? Look at these numbers.
The investigators were sure it was the rest of the group trying to find out what happened. So they tried tracing that number.
But it was an unpublished number, and the phone company would not give us the address. We pleaded with the phone company and promised them that we would give them a subpoena, but it's logistically impossible on a Friday night at 11 o'clock to try to get a judge to sign a court order.
What do I have to do to give you these numbers?
It had been a full day since the teenager was shot. Agents were frustrated that while Jaime was probably dying, a subpoena stood in their way.
I tried to plead, man to man, father to father. I said, what if it was your child? Wouldn't you want law enforcement to do everything humanly possible? And he just basically said, I don't care. We absolutely swore to him that, trust us, with the FBI, we will get you the subpoena.
FBI? Could I please speak to a supervisor?
And they said, without a subpoena, we're not going to give you the information.
The night ended with no lead on where Jaime was. The next afternoon, on the city's west side, someone dumped a body. While Chicago investigators struggled to find kidnapping victim Jaime Estrada, passers-by discovered a badly wounded man lying in the street on the city's west side.
Chicago emergency, Okendo.
The Chicago 911 operator took the emergency call and immediately dispatched patrol units and an ambulance.
Okay, does anybody...
Paramedics advised Illinois Masonic Hospital they were bringing in a man with a gunshot wound. He identified himself as Jaime Estrada. A Cook County Sheriff's investigator arrived at the hospital. The 17-year-old was not only alive, he was still conscious.
Yes.
The investigator asked the doctor in charge if he could talk with Jaime.
Cook County Sheriff's Office, and wondering if I could have...
He said Jaime needed immediate surgery, but since the OR was still being prepared, there was time for a quick interview if Jaime agreed.
Okay, just a couple minutes.
He said he could do it.
Okay.
Can you tell me a little bit about what happened?
Went in a convenience store to get some drinks.
He said 2 nights before, he'd gone to talk to a girl he liked. He didn't know her well. While they were talking, the driver pulled a gun. It happened so quickly. He said it felt like they drove for about 2 hours. Several armed men beat him. He could not ID them. FBI Special Agent Kevin Cassidy
Jaime did not provide any real detail regarding the identifying features of his kidnappers due to the fact he was blindfolded.
Jaime remembered passing 3 toll booths. He told the investigator that about 15 minutes after the 3rd toll booth, the van stopped. The men hustled him into a house or an apartment, he wasn't sure which.
It's your brother, man!
There they roughed him up some more, yelling about the money he owed them for the drugs.
I'll kill you, bro. I'll kill you! Huh?
He tried to tell them they had the wrong guy. That was the wrong thing to say.
You know what I'm saying, man? I'll kill you, bro. I'll kill you! Just give me the number. What's the number, S.A.? Run. Yo, get this guy! Beat him
They
senseless.
demanded the phone numbers to all of his family members.
What?
I got the number. 414-555-7577.
Get this cabron out of here.
The men carefully avoided speaking their own names. But there were others who did.
During the time he was held there, he heard female voices, and he also heard one of those voices referred to a subject as Beto.
Jaime believed it was Beto that guarded him most of the time. Sometime the next morning, Jaime was just getting to sleep. Suddenly,
Beto, ¿qué pasó?
it took him a minute to realize he'd been shot.
Miguel, get them, cállate, cállate.
It even surprised some of the kidnappers. They promptly moved Jaime to a bathroom.
You'll be okay. Cállate, you'll be okay, man.
Golly!
Hey, man, you'll be okay. Hey, man. Hey, look, you're gonna be okay, all right? Here. Put this on here. Hold this right here, okay? You're gonna be okay, man.
Go, Vente, get the car, bro. Beto, come on, man, get out of here. God, Dios mío, man. He's not gonna be fine. You're gonna be all right, man.
He fell in and out of consciousness, so his memory was fuzzy. He remembered a white tile floor, a red toilet seat, maybe a red shower curtain. That was all. Jaime's gunshot wound had gone untreated for 2 days and was badly infected. He needed so many surgeries that doctors had to put him into a drug-induced coma so he could survive the ordeal. Doctors were surprised at the young man's strength, that he had survived this long.
A little ride, okay?
But their prognosis was not good.
A little ride, okay? All right, let's go.
Several suspects were still at large. Meanwhile, on Newland Avenue in northern Chicago, a resident heard a commotion and saw what looked like 2 armed men forcing 2 others toward a van. The captives broke loose and ran. The Jaime Estrada kidnapping case was about to become much more complicated. The same day, kidnapping victim Jaime Estrada was found. A man in northern Chicago saw what appeared to be a double kidnapping outside his house on Newland Avenue. The victims managed to escape. The resident contacted Chicago police, and emergency operators sent patrol officers to the scene.
25. Okay. Right off of Belmont. All right, stay inside the house. Just letting you know the police are being dispatched as we speak.
I was walking home, and
Dispatch asked the officers to transport the 2 victims to Chicago PD's Area 5.
5 guys.
to be interviewed by FBI Special Agent Kevin Cassidy.
Next thing you know, this van pulled in front of me.
One of them, Pedro Montoya, explained how he'd been abducted. A week earlier, he was outside his house when a van pulled up. Several men jumped out with guns and forced him inside. The other man, Chavo Rodriguez, had the same story.
They were basically grabbed off the street and forcibly put into a blue and white van.
Special Agent Cassidy remembered that Jaime was also kidnapped in a blue and white van. He decided to show Montoya and Rodriguez mugshots of the men arrested in connection with Estrada's abduction.
Both victims immediately responded that those were the same individuals that had kidnapped them.
And there were two others, the armed men they escaped from.
We then started to interview them in greater detail.
They said they were held in the basement of a house with a third man.
All right, just spin them around and put them on the post here.
They were all bound to metal poles. Each of their families were called with demands for ransom money and cars. For more than a week, the kidnappers barely fed the men. A diabetic, Rodriguez was affected most. Without his medication, his blood sugar rose, which could have rendered him unconscious or even killed him. Investigators suspected that Jaime was not the third man. He said he had been held in a bathroom, not a basement. So they showed the men his photo. Investigators were right. It wasn't him.
Not the guy.
Did he escape with you at the same time?
They said the day before, the third man managed to escape by breaking through the duct tape that held him.
He freed himself.
They never saw him again and did not know who he was. When the kidnappers realized the third man had escaped, they tried moving Rodriguez and Montoya out of the house.
Here, come here. Get out of here.
It was then that the men escaped. When asked why they may have been singled out to be kidnapped and held for ransom,
I'll be here holding back something.
neither man had an answer.
But consider yourselves lucky that you made it out.
Agents obtained a federal search warrant for the Newland Avenue house where Rodriguez and Montoya were held. They collected duct tape bindings, hairs, clothing fibers, and dozens of fingerprints. The bathroom in the house did not match the description given by Jaime Estrada. Investigators believed he'd been held at a different location. Agents also recovered a Norenko assault rifle from the house.
A firearms expert determined that the bullet that was recovered from Jaime was consistent with one that would have been shot through the Norenko rifle.
In one of the bedrooms, agents found an envelope with a Los Angeles address. Inside were several photographs of a man holding the same Norenko rifle.
We took those photographs and put them into an appropriate photo array. We showed that photo array to several of the victims of the kidnappings, and they identified that as the subject that was involved in their kidnapping.
Now agents had the face of one of the two fugitives, but still no names. Agents then received information from running the kidnappers' license plates.
Our investigation led us to find an address in Chicago that was associated with the vehicle. We then had agents go to that residence.
FBI agents,
Agents spoke to Adalia Francisco. She reluctantly agreed to be interviewed. After persistent questioning, Mrs. Francisco told agents that her husband, Ricardo, was in hiding having escaped from a band of kidnappers.
I don't know what to do.
Someone that kidnapped your husband?
Yes, they called here and...
Investigators determined he was the third man held in the Newland Avenue home.
They just won't stop. I don't know what to do, and I've never...
Pressed further, she explained why her husband and the other men were being held.
And the last one was the sedan that you're asking.
Further investigation and intensive interviews led us to determine that there was a nexus to illegal drug activity in each one of these individual kidnappings.
Friends of Ricardo Francisco revealed that he was a drug runner. He owed a drug cartel $100,000. Montoya owed $130,000 to the same drug cartel. Rodriguez was not involved in dealing drugs himself. It was his son. But that did not matter to the cartel.
His son had owed some money, and they grabbed the dad. In the case of Jaime Estrada, our investigation did not reveal any involvement in illegal drug activity, and we do not believe he had any.
It seemed the cartel had been duped by the girl who lured Jaime into the van. Informants identified her as Juanita Gonzalez.
The true subject in this case was the girl. She was the one that had ripped off these guys from a kilo of cocaine, and then she tried to save her own hide by laying it off on an innocent person. She just blamed it on Jaime, who was just innocent in all of this.
All Jaime's family could do was pray he'd make it through surgery. But 17-year-old Jaime Estrada could not hold on. Infection eventually killed him. This had now become a case of murder. After conducting extensive interviews in the Newland Avenue neighborhood, agents finally identified the three men already in custody as Salome Varela, Jesus Ruiz, and Miguel Torres. The man in the photograph was identified as Jose de la Paz Sanchez. The final suspect was known only as Beto. They were still at large, wanted not only for kidnapping, but for murder. In 1996, Chicago area investigators captured 3 alleged members of a kidnapping ring that took the life of 17-year-old Jaime Estrada. They still had 3 suspects to find. FBI Special Agent Kevin Cassidy had the name of one of the fugitives, Jose Sanchez. His photo was discovered in an envelope during a crime scene search.
The envelope had an address in Los Angeles. We then surmised that the subject had fled the area, and it would be logical to look for him in Los Angeles. We obtained an arrest warrant, and we forwarded that information to our Los Angeles office.
In L.A., FBI Special Agent Scott Hanley set out to apprehend Sanchez.
Okay. All right. Yeah, thanks. Well, good luck to you. Bye. We went out to the location, which was a house in the Echo Park area of Los Angeles. After we'd been on the house for over 3 hours, one of the team observed a male Hispanic individual walk out of the house. But at that time, because of the distance away from him, we couldn't tell if it was Mr. Sanchez or not. We were able to follow him for approximately about a half hour on 3 different freeways in Los Angeles till he finally went to the West Los Angeles area.
The man parked outside a home improvement store. Even with a photograph of the suspect, they still could not tell if it was Sanchez.
If you've never met the person before and all you have is a photograph, you're trying to look at a real person to match it up with a photograph, and who knows how old that can be.
From the photo, they knew Sanchez had a Grim Reaper tattoo on his right upper arm.
One of the officers went in on foot to try to get a closer look of the individual. He followed this person in the store. I saw this tattoo of the Grim Reaper.
It was a positive ID. Agents were getting closer to nabbing the fourth suspect in Jaime Estrada's kidnapping and murder. In the end, it was surprisingly simple. Sanchez had been handcuffed before he realized what was happening. He was unarmed and arrested without incident. Sanchez confessed to taking part in Jaime Estrada's kidnapping and was present after Jaime had been shot.
When Mr. Sanchez admitted that he knew that Mr. Estrada had been shot, I asked him, well, you know, what was the condition of the boy? And he said, well, you know, he was talking to us, and I said, well, what did he ask? And he said, well, he asked, can I take him to the hospital? And I said, well, why didn't you do that? And he said, well, I didn't know what to do.
He also admitted to the other kidnappings and said they had been ordered by a drug cartel as a way to collect money owed to them.
Request that your lawyer be present before you answer any further questions.
Chicago investigators then began to intensify their search for the man known only as Beto. They conducted dozens of interviews with associates of the three men already in custody. They revealed that Beto had a sister, Monique Jimenez. Facing accessory charges, she cooperated.
Do you know anybody named Beto?
She said Beto's real name was Luis Carreno.
Have you been back?
The sister was able to describe some of the circumstances of Jaime's kidnapping, particularly the shooting. She advised that she was in the apartment at the time and had heard the shot and saw Jaime shot. And she advised that the person that shot him was in fact her brother.
There was blood there, so I had to go back.
She said she had cleaned blood off the bathroom floor with bleach. She gave the FBI the address of the apartment.
Yes, it's 2532 Moody Avenue.
An evidence response team processed the apartment, collecting samples, including the grout between the bathroom floor tiles. Lab examiners later discovered traces of blood in the grout. DNA testing proved the blood was Jaime's. In October 1997, federal prosecutors in Chicago tied the complex case together for a jury. The four suspects in custody, Salome Varela, Jesus Ruiz, Miguel Torres, and Jose Sanchez, were found guilty of racketeering, conspiracy, weapons violations, assault charges, and all four kidnappings. They were all sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The FBI tracked Juanita Gonzalez, the girl responsible for Jaime's abduction, to Mexico, where she completely disappeared. They are still looking for fugitive Luis Carreno, the man known as Beto.
He is currently wanted, and there's an outstanding arrest warrant for him. And we are working with Interpol and our other friends in foreign countries to attempt to locate him to this day, and we will continue to do so.
The Estradas pray that someday soon, the authorities will find Carreno, the man the FBI suspects killed Jaime. For the family and for the investigators who worked so hard to save Jaime, the case will never be over until everyone responsible for his death is brought to justice. In Kokomo, Indiana, an unthinkable crime terrified residents. A young woman disappeared, apparently kidnapped. After several days of searching, a former FBI profiler narrowed the suspect list to one. Agents and detectives followed the trail across state lines, hoping to find the victim before her time ran out.
Drops of blood and a torn window screen were all that was left to tell authorities what happened to a woman in Indiana. The 21-year-old victim was snatched from her home on a bright spring morning. She appeared to have no real enemies. There was no clear motive. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. In an abduction case, every second counts. This case was plagued by false leads and blind alleys, each one using up valuable time as agents raced to find the victim.
Late spring 1998, Howard County, Indiana. The rural Midwestern farming region was already enduring its first heat wave of the season. Those who weren't farmers stayed inside to avoid the heat.
Hello?
21-year-old Anita Waldridge was one of them.
Could you hold on for a second? Thanks.
She planned to have lunch with her grandparents and boyfriend before her afternoon shift at a shipping company. Her boyfriend was supposed to pick her up at around noon.
I have to go. Okay.
But she would never make it. At about 12:30, Anita's mother returned home from work. She was surprised to see her daughter's boyfriend standing out front. Anita's car was gone, but it was unlike her daughter to miss an appointment or to leave the garage door open. Her mother also noticed that the screen from the kitchen window that faced the garage had been removed. Perhaps someone had broken into the house. The front door was unlocked.
Anita!
Anita was nowhere to be found.
Anita! Anita!
In the kitchen, Mrs. Waldridge spotted blood on the kitchen table and floor.
Oh my God. Yes, I need...
She called 911. Howard County Sheriff's Chief Detective Steve Rogers responded to the call.
I don't know that any of us really knew exactly what we had at that time. We just knew that we had some very suspicious circumstances. We had what appeared to be possibly a forced entry, in that the screen had been removed, and that some blood indicated that there could have been a violent act.
The detective issued an APB for Anita and her blue sedan and called in a forensic team that included officers from the nearby city of Kokomo. Technicians recorded the scene while the evidence was still fresh. They retrieved blood from the kitchen, but could not determine if it was Anita's without a sample from the missing girl. The screen found in the garage had been forced out from the kitchen window. Investigators dusted the area for prints. None that were lifted yielded any clues. Detectives interviewed Anita's parents to learn more about their daughter. They described her as a responsible young woman who held a steady job and who would never break plans without calling.
We had a missing person that was responsible and would not have just run off. We found nothing in our interviews with witnesses, talking to family members, that Anita had any problems at home, that she would have just taken off without any explanation.
Okay, good. I need to know what
The detective questioned Anita's boyfriend, who she had been dating for several months.
I came over here.
He claimed to have arrived at Anita's at about 11:45 and had been there for 45 minutes when her mother pulled up.
Just hanging out. Pick up Anita.
Before that, he had been with friends until around 11.
11:45.
Tell me about you and Anita, how you two get along.
That left 90 minutes during which his activities could not be corroborated.
Wait. Stay right
He
here.
had no idea where Anita might be and agreed to come to the station for further questioning if necessary.
We were fine. It was boyfriend and girlfriend.
Authorities examined Anita's bedroom. Mrs. Waldridge pointed out that Anita's work clothes were still there. She spoke to her daughter's supervisor, but he said Anita had not yet arrived.
Supervisor's name is Mr. Johnson. 451-2345.
The detective called again to see if she had ever shown up.
Her employer told us that, she shows up when she's got a cold, she works when she's not feeling well, she's very dependable, and then the fact that she didn't show up for work that particular day was very significant.
Mrs. Waldridge said that the only thing missing from Anita's room was a red bathrobe that she had recently embroidered for her daughter. Forensic technicians retrieved hair samples from Anita's brush to begin the lengthy process of mapping her DNA. In the bathroom, Anita had left her glasses and contacts behind. She couldn't drive without them, but her car and her keys were gone. Mr. and Mrs. Waldridge had also discovered that their bed had been stripped of its comforter and the sheets were rumpled. Investigators suspected that Anita may have been raped there. Forensic technicians processed the room for any physical evidence.
Okay.
They examined the bed with ultraviolet light, searching for seminal fluid on the sheets and blankets. The bedding was clean. In the garage, a detective found a wad of electrical tape. Long strands of hair that resembled Anita's were tangled inside. Police suspected it had been wrapped around the victim's head to hold a gag. If that were true, it may have meant that Anita was taken from the house alive. Detectives spread out from the house looking for witnesses.
There was a neighborhood search conducted by talking to neighbors and walking areas and see if she had been seen anywhere. And at the same time, we were trying to develop any potential suspects by talking to people that she routinely came in contact with.
A deputy interviewed a neighbor who lived across the street from the Waldridges. He remembered seeing someone in front of their house that morning. At about 10:30, the neighbor spotted a man carrying a blue backpack heading towards the front door. He saw no one else outside after he returned from his errand a half hour later. He couldn't remember if Anita's car was gone by then. Deputies were left with only hunches as to what had happened.
We assumed that the worst could be an abduction, but we definitely knew we had a missing person. So we just wanted to at least, at the very outset, cover all the basics of preserving the crime scene, obtaining any evidence that we possibly could, and then start in the next stage of the investigation, which would be doing as much background on the victim and trying to identify a suspect in an abduction if that's what's happened.
After 24 hours and dozens of interviews, no one had seen Anita or her car. Detectives interviewed a man who was a friend of Anita's father.
Not really.
He claimed that he had spoken to Anita on the phone the morning that she disappeared.
Make sure this is the phone number that you had called.
The Waldridges' records confirmed it.
Can you tell me about the phone conversation?
The man said he called at about 10:30 or so and asked to speak to Mr. Waldridge.
Hey.
Anita said her father wasn't there and that she was the only one home. Before she could take a message, she asked him to hold on. Someone was at the door. Anita came back to the phone only to say she had to go. She did not say who had come to the house.
It's almost like you
Increasingly, detectives were convinced that Anita met with foul play.
gotta go. Did she say who was that?
If this was a kidnapping, investigators suspected that whoever was responsible would make contact with the Waldridges. Technicians tapped the family's phone line. They would be ready if a call came in. Investigators also began to search for anyone who might have had reason to harm Anita.
We had no immediate suspects other than we started looking into all those people that had been in contact with Anita recently.
Detectives interviewed Anita's co-workers at the shipping company. They claimed Anita didn't have any problems with anyone at the job. But they did remember something a few weeks before she disappeared. At a place where the employees often went to relax, Anita's co-workers saw a man approach Anita. He worked with them at the shipping company and had had several drinks before he started teasing Anita.
Not with you, thank you.
Anita was polite but clearly annoyed. The witnesses thought he didn't appear too happy that Anita had brushed him off.
Swaggers up to her.
They added that the man had not shown up for work the day that Anita disappeared.
And you could tell by the look on her face she did not like it.
Detectives went to question the employee who was at home.
Disappearance of Anita?
Yeah.
And I'm investigating.
He claimed that his encounter with Anita in the restaurant was an innocent exchange.
We're friends. We're co-workers.
On the morning she disappeared, he said he came into work before his shift and explained to his supervisor that he needed the day off.
Well, not me. I didn't do anything.
He wanted to work on his car.
On my car.
You're hiding?
His supervisor confirmed the alibi.
Sorry for the interruptions, but these are questions.
As the hours ticked by, family and friends posted missing persons flyers throughout the area. They asked for anyone to call with information about their daughter or her car. They also contacted the media to spread the word beyond Kokomo. Air surveillance and concerned citizens fanned out across the rural region to assist officers in the search.
A lot of lanes and back roads are in the extreme portions of this county. We had volunteer groups. The civil defense actually went out and formed organized searches of wooded areas. We felt that if we could find her vehicle, that would give us some evidence to lead us in another direction.
48 hours after Anita had disappeared, Detective Rogers received a promising tip from the mother of one of Anita's friends. The woman reported that Anita was having problems with another co-worker at the shipping company. Anita said that the man had sexually harassed her on the job. She was concerned enough to file a complaint against him. Anita told the mother that if she wound up in a dumpster somewhere, you would know who did it. Investigators hoped they could find her before it was too late. They knew every hour she was gone lessened the likelihood Anita would be found alive.
Did he say anything about...
Detectives returned to the shipping company. The supervisor told them that he had no record of a sexual harassment complaint filed against the employee.
He left on his own accord.
He added that the man had resigned 3 weeks earlier and left the state for college. The suspect remained on the list until detectives could determine his whereabouts at the time of Anita's disappearance. While the lead was being checked, investigators continued their search for suspects in the area. They asked Anita's boyfriend to take a lie detector test since his alibi could not be corroborated on the morning Anita went missing. The test consisted of only 2 questions. Did he have anything to do with the disappearance of Anita Waldridge? And did he know where Anita could be found? He answered no to both, but was found to be deceptive. He remained a suspect, though police had no evidence with which to hold him. After 2 days of searching, investigators were no closer to finding the missing woman. And the chances that she was still alive decreased with each passing day. 2 days after 21-year-old Anita Waldridge disappeared from her suburban home in Indiana, Howard County sheriffs had identified her co-worker and her boyfriend as possible suspects in her abduction. Though evidence found at her house suggested that she'd been taken alive, investigators knew that time was against them. Detectives spoke to Anita's friends to find out more. Most conveyed that they didn't know anyone who would want to hurt Anita, especially her boyfriend. One friend, who had previously worked with Anita at a gym 2 years earlier, said that Anita was nice to everyone, including difficult people. She recalled a member from the gym whose behavior towards the women there was crass.
What's wrong?
His name was Victor Steele. They found him offensive.
Is that Steele? Yes.
But he remained undeterred. Steele bothered Anita in the same way.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. How about a towel?
Yeah, I'll take that.
But she remained characteristically polite when she rejected him, according to Detective Steve Rogers.
What did I do?
Anita was a personality that she was always very forgiving and willing to try to work with anyone, and that she had made an extra effort to try to get along with this individual.
The man's behavior never changed, and his membership was eventually terminated. Anita's friend remembered that Victor Steele lived in Howard County at the time. Investigators checked on Steele's background.
When his name came up, we were able to locate his name in the Indiana Sex Offender Registry and learned from that he had been convicted in Monroe County, I believe in 1984, of an abduction.
Though Detective Rogers didn't know if Steele had any contact with Anita in the past 2 years, he believed Steele was the most promising suspect so far. To substantiate his theory, the detective turned to retired FBI profiler Steve McVeigh for guidance.
He had 3 or 4 people that he had to look at as suspects. He's wanting to see if we can narrow these down and to give some focus to the case. He has limited resources, and certainly time was the most critical of those. And if we could focus, then we'd be a little bit better off.
The profiler examined the crime scene reports and the backgrounds of each suspect. 41-year-old Victor Steele's background stood out. The circumstances surrounding Steele's conviction 15 years earlier had many similarities to Anita's disappearance. In December of 1984, Steele had stalked a woman on an Indiana University campus where he was a student. One night, he waited outside for her boyfriend to leave. Like Anita, the young woman had previously turned down his advances. Knowing she was alone, Steele approached the house.
Hey, what are you doing?
When the woman answered her door, Steele pushed his way inside.
Just want to talk to you, that's all. Don't let me talk to you. You treat me terrible. I don't understand it.
He pulled a knife from a blue backpack and threatened to kill her if she did not submit to being raped.
He'd had contact with her. He didn't live all that far from her. He carried the backpack that he had, same as in the first instance, which he used as a crime kit, where he brought his tape, his ropes, and whatever else that he was going to use. And that's very, very distinctive.
After raping her, he forced her to walk with him at knife point. He told her to act like they were lovers, or else he would stab her. The profiler recognized that part of Steele's fantasy was to feel like he was her boyfriend.
He had hoped to make this gal love him, his victim love him. He didn't look at it as a rape. Now, 15 years later, if it were the same guy, he would have the same signature, but he would be more sophisticated about it.
Most importantly, Steele did not kill his victim.
Want to go?
He released her on the condition that she would not call the cops. She agreed, then ran to the nearest phone to call 911. Victor Steele was arrested hours later.
I think that he looks back on the case in 1984 as a mistake, that he was not thorough enough in indoctrinating her or winning her over as sufficiently as he thought he had. And then when he let her go, she identified him and sent him to prison.
Victor Steele served 8 years behind bars for first-degree rape and abduction. He was distraught over the conviction. In prison, Steele attempted suicide twice. If he had abducted Anita, he was not going to make the same mistake again.
Victor Steele wanted to find a lady that he could, in effect, make love him. And if he couldn't, if it didn't work, then he was prepared, in my opinion, to kill her. And so, love me or I'll kill you is a very succinct description of what went on in this case.
The profiler stressed the importance of not revealing the investigation to Steele. If the suspect felt police were onto him, he would probably kill Anita and himself. Kokomo City Detective Michael Holzapfel was called in to work undercover and help locate the suspect.
The task of finding him involved us immediately in doing a surveillance of his last known residence, which was the home of his mother, which was on the outskirts of our city here in Howard County.
2.5 days after Anita disappeared, police set up outside the Steele residence. No one was seen entering or leaving. They needed a way to find out who was inside without blowing their cover. A car parked in front might be their way in.
We observed that there was a vehicle for sale outside of his house. We seized on that as an opportunity to establish contact under a ruse of being interested in making the purchase of the car, recognizing that we wouldn't have to compromise our identity.
Posing as potential buyers, undercover officers wearing wires prepared to make contact with whoever was home. They had no idea if Steele or Anita were inside. The suspect might do anything to protect his freedom. Every moment's delay dwindled the possibility that Anita remained alive. In June of 1998, investigators searched for convicted rapist Victor Steele in the abduction of a missing Indiana woman. 2.5 days after her disappearance, police set up surveillance outside his last known residence. Undercover detectives posing as used car buyers planned to make contact with the 41-year-old suspect. Though each hour that passed decreased the victim's chances for survival, Kokomo City Detective Michael Holzapfel believed that there was still hope.
A sexual predator would enjoy a sense of self-assurance by way of his having made it from the scene with his captive victim. That probably presented a window of opportunity to us as investigators that she would still be kept alive.
Wired for their own safety, they knew that approaching the house may put the victim at risk if Victor Steele discovered that he was a suspect, according to retired FBI profiler Steve McVeigh.
I told him, tell your guys you've got to be extremely discreet in this whole investigation, although we must press because time is of the essence. We have to do it in such a way that it arouses absolutely zero suspicion on Victor's part. And if he had any suspicion whatsoever that he had come under suspicion of the police, then he would dispose of her.
An older woman answered the door.
No.
She told the undercover detectives that the car for sale belonged to her son, Victor. The detectives said they were ready to buy now and were invited inside to discuss the price and the vehicle's history. The mother claimed that her son had moved to Wisconsin a few weeks earlier. Without her permission or a warrant, detectives were unable to search the house independently. They believed she was not likely involved, but they weren't convinced that she wouldn't alert her son to the search. She added that Victor hadn't hooked up his phone yet in Wisconsin, so she had no way to reach him.
No, he's gonna call.
She would have to speak with him before she could set a price.
Sometime he's here. Sometime he's here.
The detectives promised to keep in touch and looked forward to speaking to the owner himself. The FBI profiler remained confident Victor Steele was the primary suspect.
We could not eliminate him, and in fact, the secure place that I thought he would have taken her to, and where he could spend a significant amount of time with her, might very well be in a totally different area where no one knew him at all, and no one would have any idea of looking for him there. And that he very likely had gone and prepared a place and had in fact come back and taken her without his mother ever even knowing it.
24-hour surveillance by undercover officers continued as other team members discreetly gathered more background on Steele. They learned he was unemployed and owned a red pickup, but they could not figure out where he was staying. With each passing day, pressure to find the suspect and the victim mounted upon Howard County Chief Detective Steve Rogers.
We wanted to find this young lady alive. People were looking at us and saying, well, gosh, can't you do something? And we weren't at liberty to talk about what we were doing and what we thought we could get done. We had to be very guarded with that information.
Victor Steele's credit card statements revealed that he had rented a truck in Indiana a few days before the crime. Company records showed that Steele had traveled 910 miles round trip. Investigators divided the distance in half and traced a 450-mile circle around Kokomo, Indiana. One town that intersected was La Crosse, Wisconsin. Steele's credit card records also showed that he purchased gas at a convenience store on the date he rented the truck. Detectives called the parent company to determine the store's location. It was near La Crosse, Wisconsin. They notified the FBI that it was likely Victor Steele had crossed state lines with the victim. FBI Special Agent David Fitzgerald of the Eau Claire, Wisconsin resident agency was assigned the case.
We were able to offer them the ability to bring in other agents if need be, to conduct investigation anywhere within the state of Wisconsin. And if things were going to lead out of the state of Wisconsin, the FBI is one of those agencies that has a network in place where we can contact people all over the country to help them out.
6 days after 21-year-old Anita Waldridge disappeared, her missing blue sedan was found close to her home on a suburban street in Howard County, Indiana. It was just a few miles from Steele's house. The car was unlocked, and the keys were still in the ignition. Investigators feared Anita's body might be stashed in the trunk. She was not there, but her red bathrobe was. Underneath, they found evidence that was more encouraging. Severed electrical ties.
This was a very important thing with the profiler. He indicated to us that if these had been used to secure her arms or legs, that when they were cut from her, that would be to assist her in getting out of the vehicle. There was a good possibility that she was at least alive when she was taken out of the trunk.
Detectives found no blood, seminal fluid, or other signs of struggle in the vehicle. Nor did they find fingerprints far into the car. From the driver's side window, they were able to lift what they believed was an elbow print. Technicians preserved it in the hopes it would match their suspect. Detective Rogers asked the profiler whether they should allocate a portion of his limited resources to the search in La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Steve Rogers asked me if I thought it was worth him taking a troop of his people to Wisconsin to look for. We even had the name of a town where a gas purchase had been made. Now, that was really iffy in terms of that specific town being exactly where he had her. That part I was not certain at all about, but we had nothing else at that point.
A contingent of Indiana detectives headed for La Crosse, Wisconsin, where they believed Steele had taken Anita. They met with Special Agent David Fitzgerald and La Crosse police at a command center in the city of 50,000.
They really didn't have any specific information that Victor was here and he was here now, nor did they have any specific information that the victim, Anita, was here and was here now. And they kind of
looked at us and said, "You guys must think we're crazy for being here." But, you know, they had been up for a day and a half and felt pretty strongly that something was going to happen in our area, and we were just there to help them.
Not wasting any time, that evening investigators split up into several teams, looking for Steele's red pickup truck on the streets of La Crosse until 4 in the morning. But without an address or even a general location of where Steele and his victim may be, the search was fruitless. Once again, they turned to FBI profiler Steve McVeigh to help eliminate locations.
They asked me whether they were looking for a live victim or a dead body. I replied that it was most likely that she was still alive and would be, as long as he thought he could control her, and that he was not under suspicion by the police. That he would keep her for a fairly significant amount of time. He would keep her in a place that he had absolute control over and felt totally secure.
Investigators clung to hope that a week after her disappearance, Anita Waldridge was still alive. 7 days after 21-year-old Anita Waldridge had disappeared from her suburban Indiana home, authorities believed it was possible that she was still alive. They suspected convicted rapist Victor Steele was holding her somewhere in La Crosse, Wisconsin, but Chief Detective Steve Rogers had no proof and no known address.
We had a hope that she was alive. We did not know that she was alive. This was our last-ditch effort to find her, in the sense of finding her alive, that we had to get there, set up a command post, and be ready for when we received the information where he could possibly be.
Remember us?
To get it, undercover detectives wearing hidden transmitters returned to Steele's last known residence, his mother's home in Howard County, Indiana. Posing as interested buyers for the suspect's used car out front, officers hoped to glean Steele's whereabouts from his mother. Kokomo City Detective Michael Holzapfel was aware of the danger.
Our concern was that if we were discovered making our inquiries regarding Victor Steele at this stage of the investigation, that we might be contributing to the murder of this victim, that it might place her life at immediate risk.
It was a risk they had to take. His mother maintained that she still didn't have a telephone number for her son in Wisconsin. But she did have an address. The undercover officer repeated the address out loud to his partner so it could be heard by detectives listening outside. He immediately called Chief Detective Steve Rogers at the FBI office in La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Captain, I got the address.
My team people are in the street with the La Crosse Police Department and the La Crosse FBI, and I'm relaying this information, and at that particular point when I tell them, "Do you have a Clinton Street in La Crosse?" and they looked at me rather strange and said, "Yes." I said, "That's where he's at."
FBI and La Crosse detectives arrived in minutes. They identified the red pickup truck parked outside as Victor Steele's.
As soon as Victor Steele's vehicle and residence were, in fact, under surveillance, I requested assistance with the local authorities there to go to a local court, local magistrate, and apply for a search warrant for the address on Clinton Street and for Victor Steele's vehicle and for the person of Victor Steele.
While they waited for the warrants, agents contacted the owner who lived close by to find out if Steele had in fact rented the house. He confirmed the suspect was his tenant. Steele had claimed that he wanted to turn the building into a bookstore. The landlord provided a sketch of the building's interior layout. He also gave the FBI a key to the front door. Outside the rental property, investigators consulted the FBI profiler. They asked him what the chances were that Steele was holding Anita inside the building. Profiler Steve McVeigh warned that if she was there, getting to her safely would be difficult.
They were trying to determine whether they needed to storm the place or whether that was even the place that he would have her or not. So I was confident he did in fact have her there. She would be very well secured. I did tell him that I thought there was at least a 50-50 chance that should they attempt to storm the place while he's there, that he would kill himself and kill her too.
Investigators had no way to confirm who was inside. If they waited to go in, they might be too late.
We were again calculating with the resounding thump of this clock ticking in the back of each of our minds and our hearts as to whether or not do we make an entry? Do we wait? Do we stage a surveillance, watch and wait? Do we go ahead and force an entry? That decision was in part made by us witnessing Victor Steele leave the residence.
After a week of searching, investigators got their first glimpse of the suspect. He climbed into his truck and drove away. The surveillance team followed, but decided it would be imprudent to stop him for questioning.
One of the risks that we did face is that, say, he had Anita at another location that was not the residence, and he decided that he did not want to cooperate with us, and he just left. He may never go to that place again, and we may never find any.
Agents tracked Steele to a lumber yard. A detective followed the suspect inside. Steele seemed interested in long planks of wood.
I witnessed him make purchase of lumber. That in itself was a chilling observation and bit of information to convey back to the surveillance team because we had thoughts in mind. What's he using lumber for? To make a cage, to make a coffin?
The detective reported back to the other investigators. They watched as Steele returned to his pickup with the lumber.
Check it out. Call him on the way out.
Investigators continued their tale. Steele retraced the route he had taken from his rental property. They had to decide soon if they were going to risk stopping him without knowing for sure where he was going or where he had stashed Anita.
If he had her alive and she was somewhere else, he would have went to her by now. But since he had not been away from the residence to any other location, we felt strongly that if she was alive, that she would still be there at that residence.
They decided they weren't going to let Steele return to the rental property.
Take him down, take
A
him down.
lacrosse detective radioed to a uniformed officer to stop the pickup. The decision would mean the difference between life and death for Anita Waldridge. 8 days after a 21-year-old Indiana woman was abducted from her home, the FBI and local authorities stopped the prime suspect in La Crosse, Wisconsin. They believed Victor Steele was holding Anita Waldridge in a rented house nearby, but they had no proof that she was there or that she was still alive. Since they did not have enough to arrest the suspect, a La Crosse police cruiser pulled the pickup to the side of the road on the pretense of a routine traffic stop. Then the FBI approached. Special Agent David Fitzgerald asked the suspect if he would assist in their investigation.
He wasn't under arrest, and I didn't want to make him feel like he was. I had no probable cause that I was aware of at that time to arrest Mr. Steele, and I just wanted to have a conversation with him.
Steele agreed to cooperate and accompanied agents back to the FBI office. The sex offender claimed to know nothing about Anita Waldridge's disappearance and lied about where he was living.
Mr. Steele indicated that he thought that he had been stopped by law enforcement officers for his failure to register as a sex offender in the state of Wisconsin. And he indicated that he had been in Wisconsin for a couple days and that he was staying in his truck.
At Steele's rental property, investigators prepared for entry. They would be ready when they got word the warrant was signed by a judge. It was a difficult wait for Detective Michael Holzheim.
The greatest anxious moments of the investigation I would describe occurred in awaiting the arrival physically of a search warrant that was being then prepared at our command center. We had Victor Steele. He was no present threat to anyone. We didn't know what the condition or circumstance Anita was suffering at that moment.
They got the warrant. The entry team used the key provided by the landlord. They exercised extreme caution, aware that the place may be booby-trapped.
Anita, police!
Officers swept through the rooms, including the basement, announcing their presence. But the team heard no answer to their calls.
Closet clear. Closet clear!
It appeared they had been wrong. At the FBI office in La Crosse, an agent and detective continued their interview with Victor Steele.
Nope.
The suspect admitted that he once knew a woman named Anita from a health club, but he hadn't seen her for a while. Without Steele's cooperation, investigators realized they may never find Anita, and they didn't have enough to place him under arrest.
Again, Mr. Steele indicated that he couldn't help law enforcement officers. He talked about the fact that he was not under arrest, he was detained, and he basically said, do what you gotta do to get me out of here.
Anita! FBI!
In the last room, authorities spotted a large metal cabinet lying face up on the floor. Its doors appeared to be secured with a broken broom handle and a butter knife.
We didn't communicate verbally at that particular time, but the communication was clear that we wanted to be cautious of booby traps. We wanted to be cautious about disturbing evidence, but we needed to open that cabinet.
The team members believed, dead or alive, the search for Anita was at an end. They saw no suspicious devices attached to the box, nor did they hear movement from within. Carefully, they freed the cabinet's handles. After 8 days, Anita was alive.
It was hard for me to believe that it was really going to be over. And they opened the box, and there's like 5 or 6 police officers standing there. And I'm like, thank God, take me home.
Anita Waldridge told her rescuers that though she was not gagged, she had been conditioned by Victor Steele not to call out.
He told me he might make fake noises, so if I would scream for help, then he would kill me. And then when the police actually came to the door, I was still afraid to scream because I thought he might be playing a tape or making it up.
She was handed over to the emergency medical technicians. Except for dehydration, she remained healthy even after her long ordeal. Victor Steele was placed under arrest for kidnapping and sexual assault. He remained unfazed.
Victor really was not remorseful about what he had done. It appeared to me that if there was any remorse, it was in the fact that he had been caught.
From the health club where you used to
Anita had little to eat during her captivity. She ate her first meal as she explained to investigators the events that began 8 days earlier. Victor Steele arrived at her home at about 10:30. She recognized him from the health club and invited him in. He told her he had been out riding a bike and asked if he could come in for a glass of water.
Didn't seem like a big deal that he came to the door. I knew he rode his bike everywhere, and I mean, it was really hot that day. And I just never second thought I was going to get him a glass of water, send him on his way.
Anita asked Steele to wait while she wiped up blood from the kitchen floor where she had cut herself earlier. When her back was turned, Steele drew a stun gun from his backpack.
I didn't know what was happening. It was all so fast, and I realized, like, I'm being attacked, and I started screaming, even though I knew no one's going to hear me. All the windows are shut and air conditioners are on. And then when he hit me in the stomach, it's just, I lost all control of my legs. Like, they just went limp.
Steele disguised himself in women's clothes before he left the house. He first grabbed the bedspread, then Anita's robe to cover her bound wrists.
Get in here and I don't hear anything out of you.
He tried to shove her out the kitchen window, but decided it was easier to walk her to the car.
Keep your mouth shut.
He locked her in the trunk. Before taking her to Wisconsin, he brought her to his mother's house and raped her.
I'd always thought I'd rather die than be raped, and then it was almost like survival mode took over my body. It was like, okay, we're gonna get through this, and I'm gonna do everything in my power not to die like this and have my parents with unanswered questions.
So, you understand me? Get in.
In La Crosse, Wisconsin, Steele showed her a metal wardrobe that would be her new home. He threatened to kill her if she tried to escape.
Don't you bother.
Anita agreed not to try, but Steele didn't trust her.
I'll take that forward. I'll beat you with it.
He left a quarter on top of the wardrobe to indicate if she tried to get out.
I didn't like being confined like that, but at least if I was in there, I knew he couldn't touch me. But it also made it very dreadful every time I heard the box open, because I knew I was either going to have to play games with him or be raped, or he would just see him.
Anita returned home to the warm welcome of friends and family. Detective Michael Holzapfel was surprised the case ended as well as it had.
Having worked so many broken bodies, so many fractured stories, so many occasions that it didn't come out like you would wish, that you would hope. Although this young woman suffered an incredibly a devastating victimization, she's still alive, and people work together to support her in bringing her home alive.
Victor Steele acted as his own attorney in his January 1999 trial and was convicted of kidnapping, carjacking, and weapons possession. He was sentenced to life without parole and serves his time in the United States Penitentiary in Beaumont, Texas.
I think my goals in life are a little bit different. I never thought of doing anything in law enforcement, and now that's something I'm looking into, that I would like to do that to help other people. And it gives me a goal that, I want other people like him off the streets. And so that's a little bit different than my original plan in life.
The life-changing experience would have shattered many others. But Anita Waldridge transcended her ordeal because of her strong personality and individual faith. She now hopes to become an FBI agent to help others as they helped her. In a small Kentucky town, a young boy vanished without a trace. No one knew how it could have happened. But within hours, the boy's entire family was frantically searching for him. The few leads in the case quickly turned cold, and the FBI was called in to expose the kidnapper and find the missing child.
On the day before Thanksgiving, a mother discovered her 10-year-old son was missing from his school. When a child of separated parents disappears, investigators first look at the family, and divorced parents often suspect each other. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. The search by the FBI and local authorities would cover 1,000 miles. They were determined to find the boy and his abductor.
London, Kentucky is a quiet, rural town surrounded by rolling hills in the heart of Kentucky's tobacco country. It is a traditional town where many farming families have lived for generations, and most of the people know and trust each other. At 11 a.m. on the day before Thanksgiving, November 25th, 1992, the children of Paces Creek Elementary School were looking forward to a special holiday luncheon before they left for the long weekend.
Keep up the good work. What are we doing over here? Oh, we've got the glue going. Where's Scotty? Oh, we're doing a turkey in the hand.
10-year-old Scotty Baker was especially excited. After school, he was to stay at his grandmother's house until his father picked him up on Thanksgiving morning. Scotty planned to spend the entire weekend traveling alone with his father on a long-haul trucking run. Since his parents were divorced, Scotty relished the time he spent with his father and loved to ride in the trucks his dad drove for a living. Following an afternoon tutoring session, Scotty was scheduled to go home on the bus at 3 p.m. to his grandmother's house. For Scotty's mother, Ruth, it would be the first Thanksgiving her youngest child was away from her. She and her daughter decided to surprise Scotty and pick him up before he got on the bus. The single mother only had what remained of the day to see her son before he left on the trip with his father the next morning. Ruth waited in the car while her daughter went in to fetch Scotty.
I picked Scotty up at school that day instead of having him ride the bus to his grandmother's house because he was going to be gone with his father the full Thanksgiving weekend. And I just wanted to see him before he left.
Do you guys know where Scotty is?
Scotty's sister asked some of his classmates if they'd seen him, but they hadn't.
Excuse me. Do you know where Scotty is?
His teacher said that he had not shown up for his scheduled after-school tutoring, but figured he had skipped it to start his long weekend.
Have a happy Thanksgiving. You too.
Where's Scotty?
I don't know. I looked outside for him and no one's seen him. I asked the teacher.
Ruth hadn't called ahead, so she thought Scotty had probably taken the bus as previously planned.
I just thought there was some sort of a misunderstanding as to, you know, whether he was supposed to stay that day. I thought he just rode the bus back to his grandmother's house, and somewhere we had just missed him.
Scotty's grandmother lived close by, so the boy would certainly be there by now.
I'll go upstairs and check for him.
Great, thanks. Dorothy!
But Scotty's grandmother had not seen him get off the bus that day.
No, I took him to school and dropped him off at school.
Ruth called his friend's parents in the neighborhood,
This is Scotty's mom.
but none of their children had seen Scotty either.
When we searched the neighborhood and realized that he didn't go home with any of the kids, we went back to school to try to find out if maybe he'd stayed there for some reason, missed the bus, or at that point we didn't know what to think. Scotty had never got on a bus and went home with another child or went anywhere without telling either myself or his grandmother.
Ruth found the principal in the main office and asked for his help to locate her son. By this time, the teachers had all gone home for the holiday weekend. The principal told her he would try to contact Scotty's teachers at home. Then Ruth made an alarming discovery. She saw that Scotty had been signed out at 11:20 that day.
The sign-out book was just laying there on the desk, and I just happened to look down and see it, and see his name on it. and it said Scotty Baker had been signed out by Patricia Smith.
Ruth recognized the name. Scotty's father had a cousin named Patricia Smith that Ruth had met once years before. It was strange that the cousin would have picked up Scotty without telling anyone in the immediate family, since she wasn't authorized. The principal called the school secretary to find out more. He reached her at a hospital where she was visiting a sick relative. The principal asked if she had released Scotty to a woman named Patricia Smith 6 hours earlier. She confirmed that she had. The secretary recalled that Patricia Smith, a dark-haired woman with glasses, walked into the office at about 11:15 a.m. The young woman said she was Scotty's cousin and was picking him up to take him to his father. When Scotty's 5th grade class passed by the front office on their way to the Thanksgiving luncheon, the secretary summoned Scotty with exciting news. His cousin had come to take him early from school. The secretary knew most of the children's parents and relatives, but she had never met Patricia Smith before. She added that Scotty didn't seem afraid of the woman and he left willingly. The principal conveyed the news to Ruth. She was upset to learn that Scotty had been released to another person without her permission.
She was taking him to see his father. So that kind of made sense to me. Because if Donnie was out on the road and he was just going to swing in, he might have had somebody pick him up, but it was strange to me why it would be somebody that Scotty didn't know.
Apparently knew each other, and Scotty was...
Ruth didn't know Patricia Smith either, nor did she know her number. She demanded that the principal call the authorities. Kentucky State Police sent 2 troopers to the school to help track down the missing juvenile. The principal handed officers a school photograph of Scotty Baker and provided them with the names and addresses of his 5th grade classmates.
You didn't give her permission in any way, shape, or form.
Ruth told officers that her son was last seen 6 hours earlier, leaving school with a woman named Patricia Smith. Though her ex-husband, Donnie, had a relative by that name, Ruth could not provide them with her address or phone number. Investigators' first task was to locate the cousin. Former Kentucky State Police Detective Larry Lewis discovered that Donnie Baker's cousin, Patty Smith, lived very close to the school, as Ruth had remembered.
We went to Patty Smith, that was related to Donnie, a cousin, and talked to her, and she didn't fit the description whatsoever. And her alibi checked out where she was at.
Into the evening, police pursued all the women named Patricia Smith within a 100-mile radius of Scotty's school. They found several. All were home, since the next day was Thanksgiving. But none looked like the woman described by the school secretary, and all had solid alibis.
People vouch for this?
There was about 3 or 4 other Patricia Smiths that we checked out, and none of them panned out. So we eventually found out that it wasn't a Patricia Smith, that somebody had used that for an alias.
At Scotty's grandmother's house, Ruth and her 2 daughters braced themselves for the worst. Almost 8 hours after Scotty was taken from school by an unidentified woman, there was still no word. Ruth tried to reach her ex-husband, Donnie, to see if he might know something. She left a message with his manager at the trucking company, who told her that Donnie was somewhere on the highway delivering a load of freight to Ottawa, Illinois.
Listen, if it wasn't important,
We waited for him to call because for some reason I thought he'd know where he was when he got there. That was the only hope that we had at that point, that somehow Donnie would know who had him when he found out that he was gone.
Kentucky State Police continued to search for answers locally. They traveled to the homes of the children that had attended school with the missing boy that day.
About the last time that he saw
One of Scotty's friends had spent most of that day with him. He recalled seeing Scotty leave with the young woman.
Did Scotty seem afraid of her?
The 10-year-old also saw the car they got into. He knew it had 4 doors, but he was unsure of the model. The boy remembered clearly that Scotty was happy about leaving and showed no fear of her.
Do you note her hair color?
He said that all Scotty had talked about that day was traveling on the road alone with his father. The 5th grader had little else to add.
Please give us a call. Okay. If you think of anything else, let her know.
By 10 p.m., more than 10 hours after Scotty was last seen, investigators still had no solid leads to his whereabouts. Since they'd received no ransom calls, police now turned their attention to Scotty's family and friends.
Hello?
Scotty's stepmother, Scotty Baker, stayed by the phone. Perhaps someone who was close to the boy knew more than they were telling. In child abduction cases, it is usually one of the parents who is responsible since they have greatest access to the child. Scotty's mother, Ruth, understood this and was willing to provide investigators with whatever they needed to find her son.
Of course, any law enforcement official, I think that's their first thought, that the mother and father have something to do with it when a child disappears. I think that's the first people they investigate. And in this case, they immediately thought Donnie or I had something to do with it simply because we were divorced.
Detectives asked about her relationship with her ex-husband, Donnie.
Every time he would go over there, he would always come home complaining.
She said that she and Donnie were distant, but for Scotty's sake, they remained generally respectful of each other. The couple had divorced 5 years prior. According to Ruth, the divorce was acrimonious, with custody of their son acting as the main point of contention.
Saturday to see my son.
Why now?
After some wrangling, Ruth and Donnie agreed to joint custody. To her knowledge, when her ex-husband had Scotty on the weekends, he always treated their son well. In fact, Ruth believed if there was anyone who might harm her boy, it was Stephanie, her ex-husband's new wife of 9 months.
Thanks.
Ruth claimed that Stephanie was jealous of Scotty's closeness with his father.
I didn't know Stephanie very well. What I knew about her really was from Scotty, and at this point Scotty wasn't telling me a whole lot about her. I knew that he didn't want to go to their house anymore, and I knew that he didn't want to be around Stephanie much, but I thought it was just the feelings that he was picking up, the feelings of jealousy that he was picking up from her.
Investigators thought that Ruth might also be jealous of Donnie's new wife as well, for the time that Stephanie and Scotty's father had been spending with the 10-year-old. With mixed motives and emotions, Detective Lewis believed at least one of Scotty's guardians was likely responsible for the boy's disappearance.
There were several suspects from the beginning. Stephanie Baker, because she was the stepmother, Donnie Baker, because he was the father, and Ruth Baker, because she was the mother. There was a conflict between Ruth and Stephanie, so those 3 were the main suspects.
By midnight, November 26th, Scotty had been missing for over 12 hours. Scotty's father, Donnie Baker, was returning from Illinois where he had learned of his son's disappearance. He had dropped off his rig and hitched a ride back to London, Kentucky with a friend. Donnie's wife, Stephanie, and her father were waiting at a truck stop to pick him up. They didn't have the good news Donnie had hoped for. Everyone was tired, but Donnie insisted on heading out to search for Scotty. He and Stephanie drove to some nearby woods where Donnie and Scotty had often hunted and shot at targets together. But they found no sign of his missing son.
Scotty!
With dawn approaching, Stephanie pleaded with Donnie to give up for the night and head home. He finally relented. Early on Thanksgiving morning, Donnie and his ex-wife Ruth set out to distribute flyers with Scotty's photo. With their 10-year-old son now missing for almost 24 hours, tension got the better of them. They accused each other of taking Scotty and hiding him. Despite their mutual suspicions, Donnie and Ruth continued canvassing the area.
Thank you, thank you.
They posted flyers in every business that was open on Thanksgiving. On a day meant for family, they received no reports of sightings of their missing son. They could only hope that Scotty was still alive. On Thanksgiving Day, 1992, Kentucky State Police still had no leads to the whereabouts of 10-year-old Scotty Baker. The boy had been taken from school the day before by a young woman who claimed to be his father's cousin. Scotty's father, Donnie, a truck driver who had recently remarried, was on the road when his son disappeared. Police arrived at his home to interview him and his new wife of 9 months, Stephanie Baker. Investigators suspected that perhaps someone close to the missing boy knew more than they were saying. The officer told the couple that he needed to interview them separately. He didn't want either of them to influence the other's responses.
Scotty?
Donnie Baker appeared anxious, but assured the officer he'd cooperate in any way that he could.
Excellent ball player. No, I did not.
He confirmed that he planned to pick up Scotty on Thanksgiving morning after delivering a truckload of cargo to Illinois the previous evening. He and his son were going to be traveling alone to Tennessee and back. Donnie added that he didn't ask his cousin Patricia Smith or anyone else to pick up Scotty from school the day before. Stephanie told the trooper that the morning that Scotty was taken, she was at home doing laundry with her friend Suzanne. Stephanie suspected that Donnie's first wife, Ruth, was probably hiding Scotty somewhere.
Really any problems.
She believed that Ruth was jealous of her marriage to Donnie, and that her husband's ex-wife would try something drastic to win him back.
Okay, yeah, she had a fuller.
Detectives also interviewed the secretary from Scotty's school, the only witness who had stood face-to-face with Scotty's unknown abductor.
Very big shoulders. Her hair color.
She was shown photographs of all the women in the family, including Scotty's mother, Ruth, and his stepmother, Stephanie. Even if they had worn a disguise, the secretary was sure that none of them could be the young woman with the dark hair and glasses who had taken Scotty from school the previous morning. After more than 24 hours of searching, the safe recovery of the 10-year-old was becoming less likely. Former Kentucky State Police Detective Larry Lewis decided to use polygraph examinations to help eliminate the immediate family members.
Polygraphs are, to me, they are just an aid. I don't trust the polygraph 100%, but it can help you.
Is your first name Ruth?
Scotty's mother, Ruth, was tested first.
Do you know for sure where Scotty is right now?
No, sir.
She also provided a handwriting sample to compare to the signature of the woman who signed Scotty out of school.
For the year 2000.
Her handwriting did not match the suspect's. And the results of Ruth's polygraph exam showed no signs of deception.
I was cleared first as a suspect. I took a lie detector test and had no problem. The detective, told me I passed it with flying colors, so they immediately cleared me.
Ruth's ex-husband, Donnie, was also called in for testing. Though police confirmed he was out of state at the time of Scotty's disappearance, they could not rule out his possible involvement. The results of Donnie's exam were inconclusive and revealed possible deception. They hoped his young wife Stephanie could provide answers, but they hit an obstacle, as Detective Larry Lewis explains.
Stephanie was asked to take a polygraph, but she was pregnant at the time, is what she told me. And the state police will not give anybody that's pregnant a polygraph. That's their policy. So when she told me that, I didn't know if she was lying to me or not, so I sent her to the hospital, and I had her tested, and it was determined that she was pregnant.
Stephanie did provide a handwriting sample. But like Ruth's, it appeared not to match the signature of the woman who signed out Scotty.
I woke up. It's around 8:30.
Stephanie also gave a detailed account of her activities on the previous day. She maintained that she spent the morning at home doing laundry with her friend Suzanne. It took them several hours, and they passed some of the time on the phone with another friend. By the early afternoon, they had finished their wash and planned to head back to Suzanne's house. That's when Suzanne realized she had lost her keys and feared she had locked them in the trunk.
Are you kidding me? So we decided to call.
Stephanie called several locksmiths, but found none that were immediately available. So Suzanne called her mother, who came to pick her up.
Suzanne had a spare key at her mother's. I left around 8:30.
Stephanie gave investigators Suzanne's address so they could corroborate the story. Late on Thanksgiving night, investigators found Stephanie's friend Suzanne at home at her apartment. She was relaxing with her husband, a trucker who was home for the holiday weekend. The detective asked her where she was on the morning that Scotty Baker disappeared. Suzanne confirmed that she did laundry all morning at Stephanie's house. Suzanne also said that at about 11 a.m., Stephanie spoke to a mutual friend about making plans for all of them to get together sometime over the long weekend. But after they found out Scotty was missing, no one was in the mood to go out.
We don't know.
Suzanne told pretty much the same story as Stephanie, that she was over at Stephanie's house and that they was washing clothes and that they received a phone call and that she locked her keys up in the car and that her mother had come over and picked her up.
We left, went out.
Suzanne provided police with the friend's number, who later confirmed the call. The detective asked her to call them if she remembered anything else. As snow dusted London, Kentucky on Thanksgiving night, Scotty was still nowhere to be found.
I think we had the first snow that week, and I remember standing in the window at the edge of dark thinking that my baby is out there somewhere and it's snowing and he's probably cold because whoever's got him, he's probably not giving him anything to put on. He doesn't have any clean clothes and he's not took a bath, and I don't even know if they're giving him anything to eat. And that was, I think, the saddest snowfall that I ever saw in my entire life.
On Friday, November 27th, 1992, Kentucky State Police called on the FBI for help. Special Agent Rod Kincaid from the FBI's London, Kentucky office learned that it had been 2 days since Scotty had been missing.
Our immediate concern was for his safety and to see that the boy would be returned home with his family. The longer an investigation goes on, the longer the child is missing, there's more chance for the child to meet with foul play, and if it is a kidnapping, there's more danger that the child will be harmed.
By now, Scotty could be anywhere. And investigators hoped there was still enough time to rescue the 5th grader from his unknown abductor. On November 27th, 1992, the day after Thanksgiving, the small town of London, Kentucky was still reeling from the disappearance of 10-year-old Scotty Baker, who had now been missing for 2 days. Since the 5th grader was last seen with a woman who claimed to be a relative, FBI Special Agent Rod Kincaid, along with local detectives, looked to Scotty's family for answers.
Our investigation basically was looking at the close family members who might have access to Scotty, who Scotty would go with willingly, because it had been reported that he left the school in a rather pleasant way. He did not appear to be frightened of the person who took him from the school.
Mrs. Baker, investigators again met with Scotty's single mother, Ruth. She had hardly slept since Scotty went missing and confirmed that she had not yet received any ransom demands. Ruth maintained that she believed her ex-husband Donnie and his 21-year-old wife Stephanie probably knew more than they were saying. She didn't trust his new young wife. Ruth claimed that she and Stephanie had never spent time together socially and only ran into each other in the small-town stores. Even then, Ruth didn't speak to her since Stephanie always acted jealous and immature, seemingly mocking Ruth from a distance with her friend Suzanne. Ruth recalled that Stephanie had also harassed her children. Just a week before Scotty went missing, Stephanie had followed Ruth's daughter and Scotty as they were heading home. Scotty felt that Stephanie despised him for visiting her new husband Donnie so often. Stephanie appeared threatened by the boy's close relationship with his father. Ruth said that Scotty didn't like seeing his father if Stephanie was going to be there.
Ruth was a very concerned mother. I received a very good impression from Ruth Baker. I certainly did not suspect Ruth of being involved with the disappearance of Scotty. She was acting just like a concerned mother should act.
How are you?
Good.
At the FBI office in London, Kentucky, agents asked Scotty's father, Donnie, to come in for a second polygraph exam since he had failed the first time. He passed this one, showing no signs of deception. Donnie now confided that, like Ruth, he too had become suspicious of his new wife, Stephanie, according to former Detective Larry Lewis.
Donnie is a very laid-back person. He doesn't get upset really easy. He was very helpful, though, after we finally got him talking. He started saying Stephanie did have some problems with his son, Scotty.
The relationship between Stephanie, Donnie, and Scotty had become strained. Just before Donnie left on his most recent trip, Stephanie became angry when he wasn't thrilled by the news that she was pregnant.
And then when you come home on the weekend,
She was convinced that it was because Donnie was so close with Scotty.
just us, ever.
Stephanie complained that Donnie spent more time with his son than with her. Since Donnie was on the road so much, his time at home was limited, and to Stephanie, it seemed that Scotty always had priority. Donnie found Stephanie's diary and gave it to investigators as evidence. They found several passages that were disturbing.
I recall seeing in the diary words like, Donnie loves Scotty more than me. I hate Donnie, or I hate Scotty. And there were words like, I wish Scotty was gone. I wish something would happen to him. There were a lot of indications in that diary that she resented Scotty and that she hated Scotty.
Agents called Stephanie in to take a polygraph exam. Unlike the state of Kentucky, FBI policy does not exempt pregnant women from the test.
Now, Stephanie, did you ever...
When the examiner asked if she knew what happened to Scotty, her response indicated deception. Following the exam, Stephanie was held for further questioning. Armed with the information from her diary and her failed polygraph exam, investigators pressed Stephanie on the details of her alibi, but she held firm. She repeated her claim that on November 25th, the day Scotty disappeared from school, she was at home with her friend Suzanne doing laundry the entire day. Stephanie also mentioned the phone conversation she had with a second friend starting at 11 a.m., corroborating Suzanne's version of events.
Hey, what's up?
The timing of the phone call was critical, since Scotty was taken at 11:20 a.m. But agents could not confirm the call with phone records since it was a holiday weekend and phone company personnel would not be back in the office until Monday morning. To agents, Stephanie's demeanor struck them as odd since she appeared unfazed that her stepson had now been missing for 2.5 days.
One thing that I recall is how cold Stephanie was when she discussed her stepson, Scotty Baker. I recall that she was certainly not the least bit, or did not appear to be, concerned with the disappearance of Scotty. Even though she used the words that she was concerned, her demeanor, her expressions conveyed to me that she really wasn't that concerned.
Stephanie provided a second handwriting sample for the FBI to compare to the one left at the school by Scotty's abductor. Investigators confirmed that the signatures did not match. Though they felt certain that Stephanie was lying about her knowledge of Scotty's whereabouts, she was definitely not the woman who had removed Scotty from school. Stephanie's alibi hinged on the statements of her friend Suzanne. On Monday, November 30th, investigators returned to the friend's apartment to re-question her and ask her to come in for a polygraph. But Suzanne was not at home. By November 30th, 1992, 5 days had passed since 10-year-old Scotty Baker was taken from his school near London, Kentucky by an unknown woman.
It's never just us. Scotty is
The FBI and Kentucky state detectives believed Scotty's stepmother, Stephanie, was somehow involved since she was found to be deceptive on her polygraph exam. Stephanie claimed to be doing laundry with her friend Suzanne on the day Scotty went missing. Though Suzanne corroborated Stephanie's story, former Kentucky State Detective Larry Lewis doubted Suzanne's credibility.
Suzanne and Stephanie seemed like to me that they had their stories down to pat, and they were telling the same story. They were telling the same times. It put a lot of question in my mind that how they could have their stories down, and they were so alike, even on their times. So we were narrowing our investigation down to Suzanne and Stephanie.
Agents wanted to confirm the story by polygraphing Suzanne, but Suzanne was nowhere to be found. Investigators called on her mother to ask if she knew where Suzanne might be. She said her daughter had left for Florida with her husband, a truck driver who was scheduled to make a delivery.
Something wrong?
Yeah. Have you seen this?
The mother didn't know when they would be back. An FBI agent went to the Kentucky trucking firm where Suzanne's husband was employed. The foreman confirmed that the trucker was on the road, scheduled to arrive in Pompano Beach, Florida the following morning, December 1st, 1992. He did not know which routes the driver had taken and could not confirm if the trucker's wife, Suzanne, or the missing 10-year-old boy was with him.
I didn't see him leave with anybody.
With the truck out of CB range of the company, investigators had no way to reach the trucker on the road. Kentucky investigators turned to FBI Special Agent Roger Ramirez in the Miami field office for help.
Our goal is to be able to quickly resolve the situation with the discovery of the child alive. When this information came to us, we were hopeful that it was going to be the case, and hopefully that this little boy, Scotty, would be in the custody of this couple. He's coming.
Since the truck's specific route was unknown, it would be next to impossible for agents or police to locate the rig as evening approached. 12 hours remained until its scheduled arrival in South Florida.
Take 75, you can take 95.
Agents planned to be there when the semi pulled in. Until then, they held out hope that somewhere out on the highway, there was a truck with Scotty Baker on board, speeding toward Florida.
The only information we had received was that they were en route from London, Kentucky to Pompano Beach. The Miami division was not advised of any other stops a vehicle might be making. However, with a sealed load, we assumed it would be coming directly to the Pompano Beach warehouse.
At 7 a.m. on December 1st, 1992, FBI agents arrived at the warehouse as planned, a half hour before the 18-wheeler's scheduled arrival. But it appeared the truck they were looking for had already arrived. A license plate check confirmed it. Though the door was open, they saw no sign of the driver, his wife Suzanne, or the missing 10-year-old boy. Then Suzanne's husband stepped out from behind the truck and asked what they were doing around his rig.
We advised him that we wanted to speak to his wife. He indicated to us that she was sleeping in the cab. We also requested permission to search the vehicle for the young boy. He granted both willingly.
The child was not there, but Suzanne was. She climbed out, still groggy from sleeping. Suzanne said she didn't understand why they wanted to talk to her. She had already been interviewed about the case back in Kentucky. Agreeing to cooperate, Suzanne assured them she'd answer any questions they may still have. Agents told her husband that they also needed to search inside the trailer. The trucker was unwilling to break the seal on the trailer door. If it were broken, his client could refuse the goods. Agents photographed the seal to protect the delivery requirements. Satisfied, the trucker raised the door. In the sparsely loaded semi, an agent searched for any trace of the missing boy, while Detective Lewis waited in Kentucky for word.
In my heart, I knew after about 24 hours that more than likely foul play had been committed. But I was still hoping at that time that he would be in the truck, but it proved out that he wasn't.
The Florida agent asked Suzanne to tell him everything she knew about her friend Stephanie's 10-year-old stepson, Scotty. Suzanne said she knew nothing and claimed that she had never even met the boy. She agreed to return to the office so they could fingerprint and photograph her. Her husband needed to stay at the warehouse with his truck. Agents in Florida received further instructions from Agent Rod Kincaid in Kentucky.
I asked them to conduct a polygraphic examination of Suzanne to test her veracity concerning her recollection of the events, and to obtain handwriting exemplars from Suzanne and have her write wording similar to that used in the sign-out log, especially the words Patricia Smith.
At the field office in Miami, Suzanne was photographed, fingerprinted, and polygraphed as requested. Suzanne was found to be deceptive on her alibi during Scotty Baker's disappearance.
Anyone to cause Scotty's disappearance.
And though she had denied it, the test also revealed that she likely knew where he was now. As Suzanne provided agents with a writing sample, they informed her that the results of her polygraph suggested deception. But she remained steadfast in her denial. Like her friend Stephanie, Suzanne could not be arrested on the basis of a failed polygraph. And unless her signature matched the suspects, agents would be forced to release her. On December 1st, 1992, 6 days after 10-year-old Scotty Baker was taken from his school in London, Kentucky, FBI agents had searched a truck in South Florida where they believed the boy may have been hidden. Scotty was not there, but his stepmother's friend, Suzanne, was. Though she and Stephanie were close, Suzanne claimed she had never met Scotty, according to FBI Special Agent Roger Ramirez.
Suzanne denied any knowledge and or involvement in the disappearance of Scott Baker. She indicated she'd never even seen the child in person and only seen him in photographs.
Suzanne accompanied agents to the Miami FBI field office, where she provided a writing sample to compare to the one left by Scotty's abductor. She had also consented to take a polygraph exam, and it had revealed possible deception. In spite of the results, the 22-year-old continued to insist that she and her friend Stephanie Baker had no involvement in the abduction of Stephanie's stepson, Scotty.
At the Miami field office, she gave basically a similar account, initially denying any involvement in her knowledge. However, we as investigators felt that there was something missing and there was something that she was not telling us.
Help to find that young boy.
After an hour of questioning, Suzanne finally broke. She may have realized that it was only a matter of time until the FBI positively matched her signature to the woman's that had removed Scotty from school 6 days earlier. Suzanne admitted that she had portrayed herself as Patricia Smith, acting as if she was the boy's distant relative. She claimed that Scotty's pregnant stepmother, Stephanie, had convinced her to sign him out. Suzanne said Stephanie wanted to get back at her husband.
I didn't know that any of this was going to happen.
Suzanne informed us they took Scotty out of school to scare him. Stephanie was jealous of the relationship that the child had with its father, Donnie Baker. Stephanie was pregnant with Donnie's child at the time, and she was jealous of the relationship.
I need to talk to you.
Stephanie Baker's plan was to scare him to keep him from going to visit his father.
Stephanie arrived at Suzanne's apartment the day before Thanksgiving, November 25th at 9:30 a.m.
I need you to trust me.
She had had a fight with her husband, Donnie, and wanted Suzanne's help to get even.
Maybe we could go to a school.
At first, Suzanne was reluctant to get involved, but Stephanie was insistent, pleading with her to help as a friend.
I don't know, just please help me. You're my best friend, please.
Suzanne eventually agreed.
Suzanne donned a disguise which would have facilitated her removing the child. Stephanie also provided her the name of this relative to sign on the dismissal form.
Scotty had never met his father's cousin, Patricia Smith, nor Suzanne. Stephanie figured the boy would go willingly when the disguised woman told Scotty she was taking him to see his father. Suzanne confirmed that they spent the rest of the morning at Stephanie's until Suzanne drove her to Scotty's school at about 11 a.m. Stephanie hid in the back seat as Suzanne retrieved Scotty from the school's secretary. Suzanne claimed that at the time, she didn't realize the child would never see his school or his parents again. Suzanne said she headed north out of London, Kentucky. Scotty told her how excited he was to go on the road trip with his father for the entire weekend.
The truck?
Once the child was inside of the vehicle with them, Stephanie, who was seated in the back, reaches, starts choking the child in the front seat, and then pulls him into the back seat. Suzanne begged her to stop. However, as she put it, Stephanie freaked out.
Scotty fought for his life, kicking and screaming. But his 21-year-old stepmother was too strong. In moments, the boy was dead. Suzanne simply continued to drive.
She didn't know what to do. Stephanie at this point says that she would blame her because Suzanne was the one who checked the child out of school. As a result, Suzanne basically felt she had no choice other than to agree to help dispose of the body.
The women drove to an abandoned strip mine nearby. They searched for a spot to hide the body away from the road.
Where are we going? Up here.
Suzanne said a few hours later, they returned with gasoline to burn the corpse before burying it. Investigators needed to know where the body could be found. Agents asked Suzanne for specific directions.
So I provided her a pen and piece of paper for her to draw the exact location as to where the body had been placed. Suzanne then drew a very detailed map as to where the body of Donald Scott Baker could be located in the London, Kentucky area.
On the afternoon of December 1st, 1992, 6 days after 10-year-old Scotty Baker was abducted on Thanksgiving Eve, authorities retrieved the boy's charred remains. His stepmother, Stephanie Baker, after repeated denials, eventually confessed to the murder and was arrested. Residents were shocked that a pregnant woman could have done this to a child. Investigators working the case, including Special Agent Rod Kincaid, were deeply affected by the harsh reality of Scotty's murder.
This is one of the cases I had as an FBI agent that certainly I'll never forget. It was horrible that a 10-year-old boy would be taken from a school and murdered. FBI agents have families. I have 2 sons. It was a horrible case. I feel very badly for the parents because I know they cared about their son.
Stephanie's accomplice and friend, Suzanne, was prosecuted first. Because of intense media coverage, her trial was moved to another county. Commonwealth attorney for the 27th Judicial Circuit in Kentucky, Tom Handy, convinced the jury that Suzanne was guilty of reckless homicide, kidnapping, and abusing a corpse.
How she could drive a vehicle with this child being strangled immediately next to her, touching her, is unbelievable to me. She drove that vehicle for 5 minutes while little Scotty was being strangled to death. A terrible time. Her vehicle has dents and marks on the dashboard caused by this child kicking it during his death.
Suzanne received a sentence of 25 years for her crimes. Facing the death penalty, 21-year-old Stephanie Baker pled guilty to murder and received a life sentence. 7 months after entering prison, Stephanie gave birth to a baby boy. Her parents are raising the child, and her husband, Donnie, divorced her. 10 years after the tragedy, Scotty's mother, Ruth Baker, has managed to press forward in the face of her devastating loss.
It's hard to say what your life would have been like, if he had lived. I think that it's made me a better parent to my other 2 children and my grandchildren because I'm very protective of them.
Ruth Baker visits Scotty's gravesite often. As a result of her son's case, state legislation was passed in Kentucky requiring photo identification for any person signing a child out of school. The Bakers hope that through the loss of Scotty, other families may avoid the pain they've suffered.